Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something pretty remarkable, a story from World War II that honestly challenges a lot of assumptions about combat roles.
We're talking about the elite women snipers of the Soviet Union.
Exactly. It's a topic that really highlights an incredible level of sacrifice and, frankly, a unique approach to warfare during what the Soviets called the Great Patriotic War.
It really is unique.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the other major powers, the U.S., Britain, Germany, women served, of course, but mostly in auxiliary roles, maybe defensive positions, not really frontline combat infantry.
But the Soviet Union was different.
Completely different. They had hundreds of thousands of women in direct combat roles, integrated into infantry, artillery, and crucially for us today, as highly trained snipers.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack how this happened. We're sticking strictly to the military records and the biographical sources provided. We want to understand the training, the sheer impact of their kill counts, and the personal stories behind these women, often quite tragic stories.
Yeah, the human element is incredibly powerful here. And just to set the scale right from the start, you need to absorb this number. Between 1941 and 1945, the Soviets deployed 2,484 female snipers.
2,000, almost 2,500 women specifically trained for sniping. That's a massive number for such a specialized role.
It is. And the cost was immense. Of those nearly 2,500 women sent to the front, only about 500 survived the war.
Wow. So roughly 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5 didn't make it back or were so severely wounded they couldn't continue. It tells you everything about the kind of fighting they were in. Right at the sharp end, constantly in danger, they knew the risks.
Okay, so let's get into how they created these soldiers. This wasn't accidental. It was a system, a factory almost.
A factory of sharpshooters.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And the heart of it was the Central Women's Sniper Training School, the CWSTS.
Right, the CWSTS. Tell us about its origins.
It was officially set up on March 20, 1942. This came directly from an order by the People's Commissary to Defense. So we're talking top-level military command.
Not some local initiative, then. This was national policy.
Absolutely, a national mandate. And its mission was crystal clear. Train female snipers, exclusively.
And the numbers they turned out, especially considering wartime conditions, it's pretty staggering.
It really is. The school formally opened its doors May 3rd, 1942. And over the course of the war, it trained 1,061 fully qualified snipers.
Over 1,000.
And on top of that, another 407 sniper instructors, women who could then go out and train others. They were based near Moscow, using barracks at an old estate, Kuskovo, with training grounds nearby in Veshnyaky. It was a continuous pipeline feeding the Eastern Front.
What did it take to get in? I imagine the standards were incredibly high for such a dangerous job.
They were tough. You had to be at least 20 years old.
Right.
Physically fit, obviously, but also you needed to have completed at least 7 years of secondary school.
Interesting. So education was a factor.
Definitely. They needed women who could handle the technical aspects, the tactics, the calculations. And before you could even apply to CWSTS, you had to pass the basic 4-day Vysevobuch program.
Let's just clarify. Vysevobuch, that was the universal military training scheme, right? Applied to almost everyone.
Exactly. Vysevobuch Universal Military Training. It was this huge Soviet program to give basic military skills to pretty much all able-bodied citizens, men and women. Passing that showed you had the basic discipline and physical conditioning needed to even be considered for elite training, like the CWSTS.
So once you were in, what was the training actually like? Sounds grueling.
Relentless is probably the word. 10 to 12 hours a day, every day, in all kinds of conditions. And it wasn't just target practice.
Right, more than just hitting bullseyes.
Oh, much more. Accurate shooting at long ranges, yes, but also vital field craft. How to crawl through trenches under fire without getting spotted. Camouflage blending into forests, fields, rubble, concealment. And the really tricky part, hitting moving targets or targets that pop up suddenly. That takes instinct and practice.
There's a detail in the sources about the students' commitment that really stood out to me. It wasn't just about their time and effort.
You mean the donation? Yeah, that's quite something. In February 1943, the students at the CWSTS pooled their money, their personal savings.
How much are we talking?
They collected and donated 69,260 rubles, and they specifically earmarked it for manufacturing more sniper rifles.
69,000 rubles. What does that mean in context? Wages were low then, right?
Very low by our standards.
Yeah.
Maybe 500, 600 rubles a month for an average worker back then.
Yeah.
So this donation, it represents potentially hundreds of months of wages. It shows incredible dedication. They weren't just training, they were personally investing in the war effort and their own tools.
So after this intense training, graduation, some even got officer ranks.
Yes, if you passed the Moscow Higher Military Command School exam, which was offered to top graduates, you could be commissioned as a junior lieutenant. Then straight to the front.
And where were they sent? Just anywhere or specific fronts?
They went where the fighting was fiercest. The records show large groups deployed to the Kalinin Front, the Northwestern Front, the 1st and 2nd Baltic Fronts, 1st and 4th Ukrainian, the Western Front, the 1st Belarusian, basically all the major hotspots on the Eastern Front. These weren't token deployments, they were in the thick of it.
Which makes understanding the Soviet sniper doctrine itself really crucial. Why were these women and snipers in general considered so valuable?
The doctrine was smart and ruthless. Soviet snipers had two main jobs. First, long-distance suppressive fire pinning down enemy troops. But the critical part was eliminating specific targets of opportunity.
And those targets were?
Officers. And maybe even more importantly, non-commissioned officers, NCOs, sergeant squad leaders, the backbone of the German infantry unit.
Why the focus there?
Because killing a leader, especially an experienced NCO, causes chaos far beyond just losing one soldier. It disrupts command, communication, morale. Replacing a good sergeant isn't easy. It takes time and experience the Germans often didn't have to spare, especially later in the war. So one sniper bullet could effectively cripple a platoon's effectiveness for a while. Maximum impact for minimum resources.
Let's talk weapons. The rifle is almost iconic for a sniper. What were they using?
The main weapon, the absolute workhorse, was the Mosin Nagant rifle, specifically the model OT-9131, chambered in 7.62 millimeter. It was a bolt-action rifle.
Why that one? It was an older design, wasn't it?
It was, but it was incredibly rugged, reliable in the mud and freezing cold of the Eastern Front, and crucially, very accurate. They selected the most accurate examples from the production lines for sniper use. They fitted them with scopes, initially copies of German designs like the PE scope, but later the simpler mass-produced PU scope became standard from late 42 onwards.
I see the sources mention they tried a semi-automatic rifle too, the SVT-40.
They did, yeah. Briefly adopted it in 1940. The idea was faster follow-up shots without working the bolt. Sounds great in theory for a sniper.
But it didn't stick.
No, it didn't last. Production for sniper use stopped pretty quickly, around October 1941. It just wasn't right for the job.
What were the problems? Why go back to the slower bolt action?
Well, a few things. For snipers, consistency is key. The SVT-40 was apparently more complex, maybe harder to maintain that pinpoint accuracy in harsh field conditions compared to the simple Mosin. But the bigger issue probably was concealment. A semi-auto action throws out more muzzle flash, makes more noise, gives away your position much faster.
Ah, right. A sniper needs to stay hidden above all else.
Exactly. The bolt-action Mosin, though slower to fire, was reliable and comparatively quieter. Better for that patient, hidden style of warfare.
And these rifles weren't just tools, were they? They often became quite personal.
Very much so. We see examples of personalized rifles being awarded as marks of honor. Alexandra Shlayakova, a Starsina sergeant major, got one with her monogram on it from the Komsomol Central Committee.
The Young Communist League.
That's right. And Aliya Moldagulova got one too, inscribed from the Central Committee of the Komsomol for excellent shooting. These weren't just standard issue. They were symbols of elite status, recognition from the party itself.
Okay, we have to talk about the most famous name associated with this program. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, Lady Death. 309 confirmed kills. It's an almost unbelievable number.
It is phenomenal. And her background is fascinating because it shows the kind of raw material the Soviets had to work with. Born in 1916, so she was 25 when the war broke out. She wasn't military. She was studying history at Kiev University.
But she had some relevant skills already.
Oh, yes. She was a competitive athlete track, specifically sprinting and pole vaulting. And crucially, she'd joined a civilian shooting club and already earned her Vorshilov sharpshooter badge and a marksman certificate. So she was fit, competitive, and already knew how to shoot well.
So when Germany invaded in June 41, she was basically ready to sign up.
She went straight to the recruiting office in Odessa. Apparently, they tried to steer her towards being a nurse, but she insisted on infantry. Got into the Red Army's 25th Rifle Division. But initially, things were chaotic. Weapon shortages.
She didn't get a rifle right away.
No. Her first assignment was digging trenches, and her only weapon was a single RGD-33 hand grenade. That's how desperate things were at the start.
How long before she got behind a scope?
Not long. Her first confirmed kills came in August 41, 2 enemy officers at 400 meters. Then the real test began. The Siege of Odessa. Brutal fighting.
And that's where she racked up a lot of kills.
A huge number. 187 kills in just 2.5 months in Odessa. When the city fell, her unit was evacuated by sea to Sevastopol for another incredibly bloody siege. By May 1942, official reports credited her with 257 kills.
And the final confirmed tally is 309, including 36 enemy snipers. That counter-sniping part is significant, isn't it?
Hugely significant. Hunting another sniper is the ultimate test. It means you're up against someone just as skilled, just as patient, also trying to kill you. Surviving 36 of those duels, it speaks volumes about her skill and nerve.
Her combat career ended relatively early, though.
Yes, in June 1942, she was wounded, hit in the face by mortar shrapnel during the fighting in Sevastopol. It was serious enough that she had to be evacuated by submarine. That was the end of her time on the front line.
And there was personal loss, too, right?
Yes, a very sad part of her story. She married another sniper, Alexei Kitsenko, in 1941. But he was mortally wounded not long after, also in Sevastopol. She definitely carried that grief.
So after being wounded, she didn't just disappear. She took on a new role.
A hugely important one. She became a propagandist, a spokesperson for the Soviet war effort, and also a sniper instructor. This is when she really gained that nickname, Lady Death, internationally. Though apparently the Germans had their own, less flattering name for her, the Russian bitch from hell.
And this led to her famous tour of the Allied countries in 1942.
Right. The U.S., Canada, the U.K. The goal was to drum up support for opening a second front in Europe to relieve pressure on the Soviets. It was a major diplomatic push.
And she met President Roosevelt.
She did. She was the first Soviet citizen ever to be received by a U.S. president. She toured with Eleanor Roosevelt, who became quite supportive.
But the reception from the press, especially in the U.S., wasn't exactly what she expected. The sources mention a real culture clash.
Oh, definitely. The Western press seemed baffled by her. They just couldn't square this 25-year-old woman with her combat record. Instead of asking about tactics or the war, they asked about, well, trivial things.
What?
Like the length of her skirt. One reporter actually criticized her uniform skirt, saying it made her look fat and wasn't as stylish as American women's clothes. They asked if she wore makeup at the front, if she curled her hair.
Unbelievable. Treating a war hero like a fashion item?
It really highlighted the different attitudes towards women's roles. But Pavlichenko and Soviet propaganda turned it around brilliantly. It made the West look unserious while the Soviets were fighting for survival.
And she had that incredibly powerful moment in Chicago.
Yes, her speech there became legendary. Clearly frustrated with the questions and the delay in opening the second front, she just laid it out. She said, "Gentlemen, I am 25 years old and I have killed 309 fascist invaders by now. Don't you think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long?"
Oh, wow. Direct doesn't even cover it.
The impact was apparently huge. A massive wave of support. It really hit home.
Her life after the war continued to be significant, too.
Absolutely. She received honors everywhere, a Colt pistol from the U.S. government, a Winchester rifle in Canada, which is now in a Moscow museum, and of course the highest Soviet honor, Hero of the Soviet Union, in 1943, plus 2 Orders of Lenin. After the war, she finished her history degree, worked as a researcher for the Soviet Navy, stayed involved in Veterans Affairs, and even met Eleanor Roosevelt again in Moscow in 1957. Her story was made into a major film, Battle for Sevastopol, in 2015.
An incredible life. Now let's shift to another key figure, but with a very different profile. Nina Petrova, the veteran.
Petrova's fascinating because she breaks the mold in terms of age. Born way back in 1893, that made her 48 when the war started, and she died at 51, much older than the typical CWSTS recruit.
What was her background before the war?
She was a gym teacher in Leningrad, and quite the athlete herself, captain of the local women's ice hockey team. Importantly, she was already a certified sniper instructor before the war even began, and she'd apparently seen some action during the Winter War against Finland.
So she wasn't a product of the CWSTS system. She was more like a precursor to it, or parallel.
Exactly. She represented that existing pool of paramilitary skill within Soviet society. She volunteered immediately, served in the Leningrad People's Militia, fighting through the siege, and rose to the rank of Starshina, Sergeant Major. Her own kill count was impressive, 122 confirmed kills.
But her biggest impact might have been in training others.
Absolutely, it's probably her greatest legacy. During the war, Nina Petrova personally trained an incredible 512 other snipers. Think about that multiplier effect.
Yeah.
She wasn't just one highly skilled sniper. She created hundreds more.
And she received significant recognition for her bravery, too.
Yes, she's one of only 4 women in history to receive all 3 classes of the Order of Glory. It's a very high combat decoration, awarded sequentially for repeated acts of bravery.
Do the sources detail those actions?
They do. She got the third class for actions in Leningrad, credited with killing 23 enemy soldiers. Later, in early 1945, during the fierce fighting for the city of Elbing in Poland, she was credited with killing 32 enemy soldiers while providing crucial covering fire. That action led to her nomination for the First Class Order of Glory. She'd already passed 100 kills by then.
But tragically, she didn't survive to see the final victory.
No, it's heartbreakingly ironic. She was killed on May 1st, 1945, literally days before the war in Europe ended. A mortar attack reportedly hit the vehicle she was in or near, and she was pushed off a cliff. A veteran who had survived so much, trained so many, lost right at the very end.
Let's move into another aspect, compationing, partnerships and ultimate sacrifice. The story of Natalia Kovshova and Maria Polivanova stands out. A sniper team.
A dedicated duo indeed. Their combined kill count is estimated at over 300. Kovshova was typically the shooter, Polivanova the spotter. What's interesting is they were close friends before the war. They worked together at a research institute in Moscow.
So that bond was already there.
Exactly. They joined a local self-defense unit together when the war started, then went through sniper training together, and served together in the 528th Rifle Regiment on the Northwestern Front. That pre-existing trust must have made them incredibly effective as a team.
And like Petrova, they were involved in training too.
Yes, particularly Kovshova. Even while serving at the front, she was actively teaching marksmanship and sniper tactics to new recruits. There's a letter she wrote to her mother, mentioned in the sources, where she sounds so proud of their students' progress. She wrote something like, "In the last 2 weeks of June, our students took down 3 Fritzes. Not bad." Shows that commitment to passing on skills.
Their final moments in August 1942 are just incredibly grim and speak volumes about the mentality on the Eastern Front.
It's one of the most stark examples. Near a village called Sutoki Byakovo, in the Novgorod region, their position was overrun by German troops. They fought until they were the last 2 alive in their trench, both wounded.
And capture wasn't an option for them?
For Soviet soldiers, especially identified snipers, who were often targets of particular brutality if captured, surrender was often seen as worse than death. The propaganda emphasized fighting to the last bullet, the last breath.
So what did they do?
As the German soldiers reached their trench, Kovshova reportedly took the pin out of her last grenade. She waited until the enemy was right there, then detonated it, killing themselves instantly, but also taking several German soldiers with them.
A final act of defiance.
Absolutely, denying the enemy capture, intelligence, or even just the satisfaction of victory. They were both posthumously awarded Hero of the Soviet Union for that final stand. It's a chilling testament to the level of commitment demanded and given.
Hard to even imagine that moment.
Nah.
Okay, next, Tatyana Baramzina. Her story's different again. Heroism after her primary role was no longer possible.
Right. Baramzina started as a sniper, a successful one, with 16 confirmed kills. But our eyesight started to fail.
Which, for a sniper, is obviously career-ending.
You'd think so. But she refused to leave the front. Instead of taking a safer job in the rear, she insisted on staying and retrained as a telephone operator and line repairer. Still a dangerous job, often under fire. The sources mention an incident in May 44 where she spotted an enemy advance while checking lines and helped organize the defense. She was clearly determined to contribute.
And her final act of heroism came during Operation Bagration, the huge Soviet offensive in the summer of 44.
Yes, July 1944. She volunteered for a risky mission, an airborne landing behind German lines near a village called Pekelin. The goal was to disrupt communications and block a key German retreat route as the main Soviet forces advanced.
These behind-the-lines operations were always perilous.
Extremely. Her unit landed but took heavy casualties. As the main Soviet forces pushed forward, the surviving Germans in the area were trying to escape. Baramzina and a few others had a chance to slip away, hide in a nearby rye field, and wait for the main army.
But she didn't take it.
No. There was a dugout nearby, filled with severely wounded Soviet soldiers, completely immobile. She chose to stay and defend them, armed herself with a machine gun taken from a dead soldier.
Facing retreating, likely desperate German troops alone.
Essentially, yes. She managed to kill several more Germans as they approached the dugout, fighting until she ran out of ammunition for the machine gun and used up her grenades.
And then she was captured.
She was. And what happened next, according to the sources, was horrific. She was dragged from the dugout and brutally tortured, stabbed, mutilated with bayonets and rifle butts before finally being killed with a shot to the head from an anti-tank rifle.
Just barbaric.
Utterly. But her defense, that last stand, bought crucial time. It helped delay the Germans enough that the main Soviet forces completed their encirclement. Her sacrifice was directly linked to the success of that part of Operation Bagration. She was also posthumously awarded Hero of the Soviet Union.
These stories are intense. Let's talk about some of the younger snipers now. Roza Shanina, the unseen terror of East Prussia.
Shanina is another compelling figure. Very young, born in 1924, only 20 when she died. Her motivation was deeply personal. Her 19-year-old brother had been killed during the siege of Leningrad. She volunteered immediately after hearing the news. Apparently, she was named after Rosa Luxemburg, the famous revolutionary.
And she was known for exceptional skill.
Very much so. Highly praised for her pinpoint accuracy. She was particularly known for making doublets, hitting 2 different targets with 2 shots fired in very quick succession. That requires incredible speed and control. She racked up 59 confirmed kills quickly.
That nickname, the unseen terror of East Prussia, came from Allied newspapers.
Yes, Canadian newspapers picked up on her exploits in 1944. She gained quite a bit of fame, or notoriety, depending on your perspective.
But she had issues with her own command.
Yeah, she seems to have been fiercely independent and driven. Her commanders, likely wanting to protect their star sniper, tried to keep her in safer rear areas at times. But she hated it. She constantly requested frontline duty, apparently even wrote directly to Stalin asking to be sent to the front.
Did she get in trouble for that?
She was sanctioned for disobeying orders and going to the front without permission on at least one occasion, but they didn't court-martial her. It shows this internal conflict, the desire to preserve a valuable asset versus the soldier's own burning desire to be in the fight.
We also get a glimpse into her mindset through her diary.
Which was technically forbidden, keeping diaries at the front. But hers survived and was published later. It's incredibly valuable. It shows the psychological transformation. She wrote about how she now killed the enemy in cold blood, not boasting, just stating the reality of what combat required.
A chilling necessity.
Exactly. But the diary also shows her deep sense of duty. She wrote something like, "If it turns necessary to die for the common happiness, then I am braced to." She understood the stakes.
And her death was also an act of protecting someone else.
Yes, very similar to Baramzina in that sense. January 1945, she was only 20, near Reichau in East Prussia. During an artillery barrage, she used her body to shield a wounded artillery commander. She was fatally wounded in the process.
Did she say anything at the end?
According to the nurse who attended her, Ekaterina Redkina, Shanina's last words expressed regret. Regret that she hadn't done more. After 59 kills and becoming famous, she felt she hadn't done enough. It's quite profound.
Another very young sniper with a difficult background was Aliya Moldagulova.
Moldagulova's early life was marked by tragedy. Born in Kazakhstan in 1925, she lived through the terrible Soviet famine of the early 30s. And then when she was only about 8, her mother was shot and killed by a watchman over some property dispute, according to sources. She ended up in an orphanage, eventually moving to Leningrad.
And she was in Leningrad during the siege?
Yes. And even then, her selfless character showed. She was found unconscious from hunger and exhaustion at one point, apparently because she'd been giving half of her tiny bread ration to a younger, sicker girl in the orphanage.
Incredible resilience. And she joined the CWSTS.
She did. She was in the first intake, got that personalized rifle from the Komsomol we mentioned earlier. She was very young when she died, only 18.
18. And her kill count is a bit uncertain.
Yes. The official Soviet records suggest around 30 kills, maybe a bit more. But later accounts, especially from Kazakh sources or museums, sometimes claim much higher numbers, even over 100. It highlights the difficulty in confirming exact numbers in the chaos of war. But regardless of the precise figure, she was clearly effective.
How did she die? It wasn't a typical sniper engagement, was it?
No, it shows that snipers often ended up in close quarters combat. It was January 1944 in the Skav region. She was apparently leading an assault on a German position. She got hit by shrapnel from a mine, wounding her arm, but she kept going, got into a German trench.
And then?
She engaged in hand-to-hand combat, and then was fatally wounded by a German officer. But just before she died, she managed to kill that officer, fought literally to the last moment. Another hero of the Soviet Union, posthumously.
Before we wrap up, maybe quickly mention a few other names that emphasize the breadth and depth here. The system produced many highly effective snipers.
Definitely. We should mention the importance of leadership within the ranks. Nina Lubkovskaya, for example. She had 89 confirmed kills herself. But importantly, she rose to command an entire company of women snipers within the 3rd Shock Army.
A whole company of female snipers.
Yes, and she led them all the way to the Battle of Berlin. That shows women weren't just exceptions. They could lead effectively at the company level in intense combat. She survived the war and became a history lecturer.
And you mentioned mentorship earlier. There's a good example with Nina Solovey and Zibaganieva.
Right. Solovey was a captain, a seasoned sniper with a solid kill count herself, somewhere between 42 and 64 reported. She took Zibaganieva under her wing. Ganieva was younger, an Azerbaijani woman who was also doing reconnaissance and radio work. Solovey specifically taught her crucial skills, like skiing for winter operations. This passing down of knowledge was vital.
And Ganieva had quite a post-war career, too.
She did. Survived the war despite being severely wounded, became a philologist, even acted in films. It shows the diverse paths these women took afterwards, if they survived.
Any other quick mentions, just to reinforce the pattern?
Well, there's Olga Bordashevskaya, claimed 108 kills, nicknamed her rifle Ivan Ivanovich, wounded late in the war but survived. Tatyana Kostyrina, 120 kills, died young at 19, while leading an attack after being wounded. Elizaveta Mironova, a Navy sniper with the Marines, died in 43, another case with disputed but high kill counts. It just shows this was widespread. Highly skilled, incredibly brave young women making huge sacrifices.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this. What are the key nuggets we should take away from this deep dive?
Well, first, the sheer scale and uniqueness of the Soviet program. Deploying nearly 2,500 female snipers trained in a dedicated central school like the CWSTS. No other country did anything remotely comparable in WWII.
And the impact wasn't just military. Pavlichenko's story shows a clear global political dimension.
Absolutely. Her tour, her famous speech, it became a powerful tool to pressure the Allies and also challenge Western notions about women's capabilities and roles in wartime. It was effective propaganda precisely because it was based on her very real, very lethal accomplishments.
But perhaps the most profound takeaway is the level of personal courage and sacrifice. The stories of Kovshova and Polivanova choosing death over capture, Baramzina defending the wounded.
Exactly. These weren't just abstract kill statistics. These were individual acts of incredible bravery, often involving conscious decisions to face certain death for a larger purpose or to protect comrades. Their strategic value came directly from this willingness to give absolutely everything.
So it's more than just marksmanship. It's a moment where extreme circumstances shattered traditional gender roles in combat.
Precisely. It created this legacy of fierce dedication, technical skill, and profound sacrifice, born out of the desperate fight for national survival.
Which brings me back to Nina Petrova, the veteran trainer. 122 kills herself, but she trained 512 others. Her impact was exponential. She ensured the skills, the terror, as Shanina was called, was multiplied and
A
sustained.
living embodiment of the system's effectiveness.
So here's the thought to leave you, our listener, with. We know Petrova's name. We know about Pavlichenko, Shanina, Kovshova, Polivanova, Baramzina, Moldagulova. But Petrova trained 512 snipers. What about the other 5 out of 11? What incredible stories of skill, survival, or sacrifice are hidden in those names, those lives largely lost to history? That, perhaps, is the true scale of this unseen army.